Imagine this moment as the moment your old self was pronounced dead. Because that person, the insecure one, the doubting one, the one who kept shrinking to fit into places that were too small for their soul, is gone. And that should excite you, but it scares the hell out of them. Because when you stop needing permission, when you start commanding your life like it owes you everything you bled for, they feel it. They feel the earthquake in your silence. They feel the fire in your eyes. They feel the fact that you're no longer waiting. And let me be crystal clear, people love the old you. The one they could predict. The one who didn't challenge them. The one who wasn't chosen yet. But today you woke up chosen. This isn't just motivation. This is an alarm bell. This is a declaration. Watch this entire message, not for me, but for why you. Because after this, you're not just going to know you're chosen. You're going to walk like it, talk like it, and demand life respond like it. Now let's go deeper. You didn't just change. You chose to change. There's a massive difference. Most people wait. They wait for the right time, the right person, the right opportunity. They sit on the sidelines hoping life will deliver a miracle while they stay safe in the identity they've always known. But you made a decision. You looked in the mirror and said, "This is not who I'm staying." That's a rare moment. That's when the shift happens. You didn't stumble into this new version of you. It wasn't luck, and it damn sure wasn't comfortable. You fought for it. You had to kill habits that felt like home. You had to silence voices that used to shape your self-worth. You had to pull yourself out of rooms, conversations, relationships, sometimes even your own family, just to breathe air that didn't choke your growth. That kind of transformation makes you dangerous. Because now you know you can become, and the second someone discovers they can become something new, something more, something powerful, they are no longer easy to control. You are no longer predictable. And that terrifies people who haven't changed in years. It's why people will start treating you different. Some will go quiet. Others will get sarcastic, maybe even bitter. Not because you did something wrong, but because your evolution reminds them of their stagnation. You're a walking reflection of what they could do, should do, but haven't done. You didn't mean to offend anyone, you just grew. And in a world full of people committed to comfort, growth is rebellion. You see, being chosen isn't a compliment. It's a calling. And when you step into that calling, you disrupt every lie you were ever told about who you are. The story you were handed as a child, the one that said you're average, limited, broken, you dropped it. You burned it. You rewrote it. That's not just change. That's war. And you won. You chose to become the one who would not repeat history. You chose to speak louder, live bolder, dream bigger. You didn't wait for approval. You didn't wait for applause. You chose yourself. That's what makes you powerful. That's why they whisper. That's why they flinch when you enter the room differently now. Because you're no longer asking, "Is it okay if I shine?" You're shining, period. And it's not arrogance, it's alignment. You finally aligned with who you were always meant to be. You didn't find your power. You remembered it. You reclaimed it. And if that rattles people, so be it. You're not here to make them comfortable. You're here to be undeniable. They loved you when you were broken. When you were predictable, when your voice trembled with doubt, when you hesitated before speaking your truth, that version of you made them feel safe, not because it was your best, but because it didn't challenge who they were. You see, when you're lost, when you're always second-guessing, when you're dependent on other people's validation to breathe, they get to feel in control. You were easy to understand, easy to box in. But now, you've become a threat to everything they thought you were. You don't fit in the old spaces anymore. And it's not because you're too much, it's because they were always too small. They loved the version of you that kept shrinking to keep the peace. They were comfortable with your wounds because those wounds never asked them to heal theirs. The moment you began to rise, to speak with clarity, to set boundaries, to walk with purpose, something shifted. You didn't just elevate, you exposed. You showed them what it looks like when someone stops settling. And that's uncomfortable to watch when you're still stuck. The distance you feel from certain people now, it's not a loss, it's clarity. It's the realization that many of them were never clapping for you, they were clapping for your limits. They supported you as long as your story made theirs look better. As long as you were the underdog who never quite figured it out, they felt superior. But once you started winning internally first, then externally they got quiet or critical or both. It's hard to accept, but real, not everyone is rooting for your breakthrough, especially the ones who depended on the broken you to feel whole themselves. The ones who like being needed, not because they loved you, but because it made them feel important. Now that you've found your own power, you're no longer their project, and that terrifies them. They'll say, "You've changed." And your answer is simple, yes, I have. Because that old version of you, the one that tolerated mistreatment, the one that kept quiet to be liked, the one that played small out of fear, that version is dead. Gone. And you're not resurrecting them just to make someone else comfortable. Don't waste your energy explaining your growth to people who never intended to grow themselves. You were never meant to stay in that place of survival. You were born to expand, to break molds, to rewrite what's possible. And if your transformation scares them, that's not your responsibility to fix. You were not made to be tolerated. You were made to be unforgettable. Let them be uncomfortable. Let them watch from a distance. Just don't ever dim again to make someone else feel bright. Your light isn't too much. It's exactly what this world needs. Being chosen isn't a title. It's a burden, a fire, a responsibility. It's not something you wear, it's something you become. And becoming the chosen one requires a death. Not a physical one, but the most painful kind, the death of who you used to be, the version of you that settled, that stayed silent, that stayed small. That version had to go, not because it was wrong, but because it was no longer true. You outgrew it. You outlived it. And you had to let it die so something greater could be born. People love the idea of transformation until it requires sacrifice, until it demands you walk away from comfort, until it forces you to look your past in the face and say, "Thank you, but I'm not staying here." You don't get to carry everything forward when you're chosen. The pain, the insecurity, the people, the habits, you have to leave some of it behind. And sometimes the things that hurt the most to release are the very things holding you back. But when you let it go, when you finally release the identity that no longer fits, you make room for what's next. The chosen version of you doesn't operate on fear. It doesn't beg to be seen. It commands attention through presence, purpose, and power. And when you step into that level of self-ownership, you don't just shift your life, you shift the atmosphere around you. That's what scares people. Because the old you was familiar. The old you asked for directions. The old you needed reassurance. But the chosen version of you walks differently, talks differently, moves with intention. No more looking over your shoulder for approval. No more waiting for a green light from people who never saw your worth. You've become your own permission slip. Understand this. Transformation always comes with isolation. The cocoon is not a punishment, it's preparation. That silence you felt, that distance, it's part of the process. The chosen are always forged in solitude before they're released in power. You don't just wake up and walk into destiny. You break, you rebuild, and then you rise. You've done the breaking. You've done the burning. Now it's time to rise. And if that rise makes people uncomfortable, good, that means you're no longer living for their comfort. You're living for your calling. That old you served its purpose. It carried you here, but it can't carry you forward. So let it be gone. Let it rest and stop apologizing for who you've become. You are not arrogant. You are aware. Aware of your value, your strength, your path. You didn't just evolve. You revolted against the limitations that tried to claim you. That's why you're chosen. Not because you're better, but because you were willing to become. When you start becoming unstoppable, it doesn't just inspire people, it confronts them. Your growth exposes everything they've been avoiding. Every excuse they've been hiding behind, every fear they've let win, every dream they buried under routine and comfort. Your progress puts a spotlight on their pause. And for some, that's too much to handle. It's not that you've done anything to them directly. You simply became undeniable, and in doing so, you revealed the truth about how much they've been denying themselves. This is the silent cost of leveling up. You think the hard part is the work, the sleepless nights, the sacrifices, the inner battles. But one of the hardest parts is watching the people around you react to your evolution. Some will cheer, but many will flinch, pull back, or pretend not to notice. Not because they don't care, but because every win you collect makes them question why they're still standing still. You see, you didn't just improve your life. You changed the energy when you walked into the room. You used to be easy to predict, someone they could count on to play small. But now you speak with certainty. You move with direction. You don't need validation, you bring confirmation. And that threatens the comfort of anyone who's chosen safety over purpose. You became a mirror, and not everyone is ready to see their reflection. People will start saying, "You think you're better now?" No, you know you're better. Not better than them, better than the old version of yourself. And that should be celebrated, not shamed. But growth, especially rapid, unapologetic growth, reminds people of their own delay. So they try to downplay your transformation. They call it luck. They say it's a phase, or they question your motives. It's easier to criticize change than to confront the fact that they've been avoiding it. But you're not here to dim your light to protect their shadows. You didn't fight through your darkest nights just to apologize for your sunrise. You made choices they weren't willing to make. You faced truths they kept running from. You built discipline where they built distractions. And now, as your momentum grows, so does their discomfort. Don't let that discomfort derail you. It's not your job to carry other people's fear. You are not responsible for how others react to your growth. You're responsible for becoming everything you were called to be. And if your rise forces someone else to face the parts of themselves they've ignored, that's not a problem. It's a gift. You're showing them what's possible. But whether they rise with you or retreat from you, your path remains the same, forward. You're not just unstoppable because of what you've gained. You're unstoppable because of what you've left behind. And every step you take makes it harder for the old, you and the people tied to that version, to catch up. Keep going. They'll understand later, or they won't. Either way, you're still rising. This isn't evolution. This is revolution. You didn't just improve, you burned the old blueprint. You didn't tweak who you were, you tore it down to the studs and rebuilt from nothing. Evolution is what happens when things shift slowly, naturally, comfortably. But that's not your story. Your transformation didn't come wrapped in ease. It came through fire, through rejection, through isolation, through pain so deep it forced you to wake up or disappear. And you chose to wake up. That wasn't a gradual change. That was a revolt. You declared war on everything that tried to keep you small. You challenged every belief that said, this is just how life is. You questioned the habits you were raised with, the labels you were given, the ceilings others told you not to break. That wasn't evolution. It was rebellion. Against mediocrity. Against limitation. against the version of you that lived by default instead of by design. People love the idea of evolution because it's soft, acceptable. It doesn't shake things up too much. But a revolution, that scares people. A revolution is loud. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't apologize for disrupting. And that's exactly what your growth has done. It's disrupted everything. You've disrupted expectations. You've disrupted old dynamics. You've disrupted the comfortable narrative others built around who they thought you were. When you become someone new, fully and unapologetically, you force people to either rise or retreat because they can't interact with you the same way anymore. The role you used to play is gone. You're not the sidekick. You're not the backup plan. You're not the emotional crutch, the passive listener, or the person who says yes just to keep the peace. That version of you got left in the ashes. What rose from those ashes doesn't bend to fit in. It builds new space and dares others to meet you there. And that's what revolution does. It doesn't ask the world to adjust gently. It creates a wave so strong the world has to take notice. That's what you've done with your life. You've become a wave. You've stopped waiting for someone else to change things for you and decided to be the change yourself. And yes, that's uncomfortable for others. It's unsettling because it means they have no excuse left. You proved it could be done. That healing is possible. That purpose is worth the risk. That power doesn't come from titles or status. It comes from identity, from ownership, from conviction. So don't water this down. Don't call it a little glow up or a new season. Say it plainly. This is a revolution. You've dismantled who you were told to be and built someone the world can't ignore. And if that makes some people uneasy, so be it. You weren't made to evolve quietly. You were made to rise loudly. Let the revolution continue. So here you are, unapologetic, undeniable, unshaken. You've walked through the fire and didn't just survive, you transformed. And now you don't owe the world an explanation. You are the explanation, the proof, the living evidence that reinvention is real, that power can be claimed, and that the chosen one doesn't wait for a crown. They forge it in the dark. Let them talk. Let them watch. Let them wonder how you did it. Because they'll never understand the nights you cried alone, the silent battles you fought, the inner demons you buried with nothing but grit and faith. They'll never fully grasp what it took to kill the version of you that settled and build the version that commands. But this is your moment now. You don't look back. You don't slow down. You don't shrink to fit into the boxes you've already broken. You were not sent here to be average, to blend in, to play nice with limitation. You were chosen to disrupt, to rebuild, to elevate the entire standard of what's possible. And if your rise scares them, good. Let it. Because the old you is gone and the world hasn't even begun to see what the real you is about to do. Now go. Be legendary.